What's up, everybody? Welcome to a very special episode of EZPZ After Dark. My friends and I got together this last weekend in White Rock at the White Rock Conservancy in Coon Rapids, Iowa. We camped out, drank lots of alcohol, ate a lot of food, especially s'mores. We even roasted a turkey, thanks to Gail's bringing the awesome equipment to do so. So it was a lot of fun. We did not do a normal episode of EZPZ Podcast, but we did still do this 35-minute spoopy episode where I had a whole bunch of my friends telling scary stories. I brought my equipment out, and it was a lot of fun. So without further ado, I think we kick it off with Shayna Gandy, Nick Gandy's wife. Then we move on to Lydia Higgins, my fiance, Mitch Sullivan, then I believe Lydia again, and then Mitch again. And then we have a couple friends like Alex Bush and Gail Grimes telling funny stories on the side. I get a couple seconds in with Nick Gandy, and then Clément Tux, he comes on and he says his story about his living in his old house. So we have a lot of cool stuff going on. Probably about 7-8 stories total. It's a ton of fun though. Like I said, we got together in Coon Rapids, Iowa, camped all weekend at the White Rock Conservancy. So without further ado, I'm going to kick it off. And after you hear, I think, Lydia tell the last story, we'll just end the podcast there. And then you can look forward to episode 90 this coming weekend. We'll record that. And back to our regularly scheduled EZPZ podcast going on from there. So you can always find the EZPZ Podcast. I'm going to do this at the front of the show. But you can always find the EZPZ Podcast at the EZPZ on everything. I'm at Shaun S. Johnson on everything. And then, of course, anybody else that told a scary story is on your screen right now. I just have like the video image with their social media stuff. So check them all out. All right. Thank y'all for listening to EZPZ Podcast After Dark.
Of the Salem witch trials in Salem, Massachusetts.
17th century?
Yes. Yeah.
Just listen up,
The
everyone.
1600s, right?
It's like Scarlet Letter era.
Yes.
Yeah,
Scarlet
correct.
Letter,
I'm correct
Little
on my
Ethan
timeline
Frome
here.
action,
All
if you
right.
will.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Yes.
Salem, Massachusetts, height of the witch trials. They're knocking bitches down left and right. Like, everyone's getting accused of witchcraft over here. There's like a couple, the Greeley
You're a
couple.
witch, and you're
yes,
a witch,
everyone's
and you're
a
a
witch.
witch.
Everyone's getting hung. Everyone's being tortured in all different sorts of ways. There's a couple, they've been watching this go down. Mr. and Mrs. Greeley, they've been watching this go down for a few years, and they're like accusing people of witchcraft. They're like making them pee and then like baking it into bread, and if animals eat it, then that means that they're a witch. And then finally Mrs. Greeley is like, you know what? This doesn't make sense. What you people are doing is kind of questionable. And they're like, well, obviously you're a witch since you're questioning us. And so they put her on trial. Of course, she's going to be hung. And her husband's like, yes, she's a witch, like going along with it. And then during the trial, as she gets hung, he's like, you know what, I stand by my wife. She's not a witch. And then they're like, well, obviously you're a witch since you're standing by her side. So they crush him because he was like one of the prominent figures in the town. So they like slowly torture him, and they put boulders on him for days. This goes on. They lay him flat and they just keep putting boulders on. He's getting crushed. At one point his like eyes are popping out. His ears are like just popping out, like bulging everywhere. And finally he tells like the sheriff and everyone, all the courts people and the townspeople that are like murdering him and putting him through this slow death. He's like, I curse you. And then he finally dies. And 4 years later, the town sheriff passes away of a heart attack, and so on and so forth. A couple 200 years go by, and a sheriff in Salem, Massachusetts is having like a stroke. He's having health problems, and he decides to look into the history of the town, and he looks at the books and he realizes that every sheriff in Salem, Massachusetts has had a heart attack within 5 years of them being a sheriff since Mr. Greeley said, "I curse you," to the townspeople and the sheriff in Salem, Massachusetts. So they finally just moved the sheriff's department out of Salem, Massachusetts, and it's done. But for 200 years, documented, every sheriff died within 5 years of a heart attack or a stroke after they tortured and put those people to death after Mr. Greeley cursed them.
Damn.
Too spoopy.
That's a spoopy if I've ever heard a spoopy.
That was really good. Shayna Neff over here. Excuse me, Shayna Gandy with the scariest ass story of the night so far. Really good. She did a great job.
I was going to jump in if you told it wrong, but you didn't.
Here we go, guys. So we're at 3:20, 3:25. We're going to sit down right here with Mitch.
The sheriff's department out.
Sit down here with Mitch.
Okay.
All right, we got Mitchell.
Hold right here.
So, this story occurred in late July 2018. I was in the boundary waters of Canada, just across the Minnesota border. We had been fishing for probably about 7 days, and we had like a little bit. We had a little bit of a tradition where at night we'd go out on a boat. We're staying in a cabin, so we'd go out on a boat and just look up at the stars and drink whiskey. And on this night, it was beautiful stargazing. We're kind of hoping to see northern lights, but we didn't. And we were I was making a bunch of jokes about like every satellite that would go by. I'd be like, UFO, there's a UFO, guys, right there. And then after we'd been out of the water for probably like an hour, we were floating around. It's kind of naturally creepy, I'm going to admit, so you're like on edge because it's black as night, and you're on the water. You can't see the shore really, so it sets you on easy terms. We might have smoked marijuana, but anyway, so after being out there for a while, we saw a huge object enter the edge of the horizon, and everybody immediately noticed it. There was like 5 of us on the boat, and we all freaked out for a moment, and then one of us was like, oh, it's probably the space station, because it was a little elongated. It looked a lot like the space station. So as soon as he said that, everyone was like, all right, that's the space station, nothing to be freaked out about. And we were kind of just chilling, leaning back, looking up at the sky. It got to about like halfway across the horizon, and it radically shifted, like 90-degree turn. Went fucking literally just on a dime turned. And then like 2 seconds later started zigzagging across the sky, zigzagged for half the horizon, and then it got to a certain point and it just rocketed away from the planet. And we all sat there and like just were super silent for a little while. I remember checking my watch to find out what time we'd seen this at. And then we started talking about like, why did we just see that? What, like, how can we explain it? And somebody's like, maybe the boat was rocking, but everyone's like, well, no, we can agree the boat wasn't rocking. We're on a perfectly still lake. We were all very cognizant of how much the boat was moving at the time. And then a prevailing theory remained that it was maybe the space station and that we're all just ridiculously stupid, fucked up. And the consensus after the fact was that we looked up the time frame that the space station would have been passing over that region and that it didn't match up. And just in addition to all of that, like the only things we were trying to explain were like, well, maybe the boat turned. So maybe we saw the space station and we thought it made a 90-degree turn because the boat was turning. But it's just like, well, boats don't suddenly turn super fast on a still lake. There's no current. There's no motors happening. This is like at midnight. There's literally no one on the lake. It's illegal to be on a boat on the lake at that point. I'm sorry, Canada.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, we're right now getting stalked by an actual Sasquatch, so heads up. But so then the other big issue that we were all thinking was like, well, so in addition to it turning 90 degrees, we saw it wobble, and the easy explanation for that is that it was wobbling because the boat was wobbling. But the fact of the matter is no one was moving on the boat. The boat was super still on a super still lake. It was 5 people chilled back, laid back, looking at the stars, making a bunch of fucking corny ass UFO jokes, and then all of a sudden we saw the spookiest thing I've ever seen. And just to add like insult to injury, at the point where we were just like, look, we can't decide what this is, let's turn back and go to the island, get back in the cabin, we heard a barking sound that we eventually settled on being a bear. And it sounded like it was coming from the island, and it fucked everybody up. And we had a dog with us on the trip, and we'd left her on the island, Rosa, sweet dog. And we were all just like, well, that's got to be Rosa for a second. And then my cousin, who's had Rosa for 14 years or something, was like, that's not Rosa's sound. Rosa doesn't make that sound. She makes a lot of sounds. She's a weird dog. She makes a bunch of noises. That isn't a Rosa noise. And we got back to the island, and we kind of like searched the island a little bit. But when I say a little bit, I mean like I shined a light out of the windows of the cabin because I'm a coward. And we slept real uneasy. The women in our group went out to the outhouse that night. It was just like too much for me. I laid in bed shaking a lot. I drank a boatload of whiskey. I was scared. I was just plain scared. And after the fact, we've talked about it literally not at all. No one has addressed it. It's a UFO. We saw a UFO. I'm scared shitless.
Jesus.
Please help me.
Damn, son. Mitch Sullivan with that shit, laid it down.
You sound like an R&B.
This is Shaun and Jay. Mike with you.
Yeah, I have a few stories.
Yeah, don't burn my man.
My mom, she has a sister and 2 brothers. And they lived in a house together, and everything was perfectly fine to everyone at the time. But I had this very strange experience where, as a teenager, I was in a house with all of them together, recanting out of nowhere stories from their childhood that really sent a chill down my spine. So as a child, my mom always told me a story where she was with a babysitter, and she was in the living room of their house. My mom was with the babysitter, and the precept to the story is that in the neighborhood there was a witch's house, quote, I'm making quote.
Okay.
There was a witch's house, and all the kids in the neighborhood said, oh, that's the witch's house, like blah, blah, blah. And they would like walk by the witch's house and they'd say, that's the witch's house. Oh, it's so scary. Don't go up to it, blah, blah, blah. And she's going to get you and all this stuff. And my mom woke up in the middle of the night with the babysitter and her brother who were home. And she woke up in the middle of the night and she was facing the wall, and her mom and her brother were saying, come on, Cindy, come on, come on, come on. Let's go to the witch's house. Come on, Cindy, come on, come on. And she was terrified out of her mind because that didn't seem right to her. And it seemed very creepy, and why is that happening? And she was frozen completely, and she could not move because she was so terrified. And they were just saying, come on, Cindy, come on, let's go. We're going to the witch's house. Come on, we're going to the witch's house. And finally she got up. She mustered the courage to get up and run as fast as she could up the stairs to her mom's room. And that's fine. That's just like a typical like kid story or whatever. Like she had a bad nightmare, she had whatever. So no big deal, right? My mom happened to tell the story when we were having like kind of a family time in Las Vegas, I remember. And then suddenly when my mom told this story, it was the weirdest thing because my aunt and uncle also started saying, oh, I have a story too, like suddenly. Like my mom had always told me this story as like a fun like ghost story. And then suddenly when she told it here in Las Vegas, like my aunts and uncles started saying like, oh, wow, that's so weird that you say that because... So my aunt said that a lot of mornings when she would wake up on the weekends, she slept in a bunk bed with my mom, And she would wake up facing the wall, and she just felt this heavy presence, like on her chest, and like she could not turn around. If she turned around and let whoever that was know that she was awake, there was going to be trouble. And she just knew that there was like a presence in her room that was watching her, waiting for her to wake up. And if she acknowledged that presence in any way or turned around, she would be in trouble. Something would happen, something bad. So she would lay there in her bed as a child and just pretend to still be asleep until the presence went away. And my uncle said, he was the oldest. He was a teenager at this time. He said he woke up one night and he came downstairs, and his girlfriend at the time was just standing there in the kitchen saying, Norman, do you want to come outside? Norman. And he, whatever, like he was just like, what? No, what? I'm not going outside. And his girlfriend had this long flowy dress, he says, and she was just standing there beckoning him.
Was she at the location? Was his girlfriend there?
Yes, in the kitchen. She was just there.
But before that, she'd
No.
been there. No. All right.
It was just an apparition. So my parents, or my mom and my aunt and uncle said, it seemed like something was, this is so creepy, because they told me in their own words, they said, it seemed like something was trying to beckon us out of the house and coerce us out of the house. And I was like, ooh, chills up my spine, because it's just what do you mean something was trying to get you out of the house? What was trying to get you out of the house? Why was it trying to get you out of the house? And why did it keep mentioning the witch's house down the street?
That's creepy how how much siblings share in that respect too. When my mom was in her 30s, she had a dream.
You're gonna need to get
to her. My uncle appeared to her in their childhood driveway and said, "My wife is leaving me." And then my mom woke up the next day to a voicemail from her brother saying, "I'm getting divorced." And they lived halfway across the country. She jumped it a few hours before it happened.
You might have to go help Shayna. I guess at this point we're just sharing weird stories. So I grew up down.
I guess at this point,
I grew up down the street
go
from.
any which way you want.
This point
All
at
the weird
9:45.
I grew up down the street. 435 Church Street. That's my home address from childhood. Look it up. Batavia, Illinois. What
All
up?
right, Mitch. Here we go. Round two.
A half block down from me was a family that was very openly Wiccan, and they were creepy as fuck. But they were also super friendly. The very limited social interaction I had with them in the 13 years I lived there were positive, but also I will say that in 13 years of living literally 4 or 5 houses away from these people, I saw them twice, maybe, physically. And there was a couple weird things about their house. They had their lawn covered in these weird relics that I'm going to describe as being from True Detective. Having seen that show now, it was that type of thing that they would keep finding at crime scenes. It was weird stick figures, and I didn't really think of anything of it. It was just there's just the people that live down the street from us. They also covered their whole lawn was covered in bird feed, and there was always a shitload of squirrels there. Literally just there's a mob of squirrels because this is 100% bird feed. Do you want food right now? There's bird feed on these people's lawn. Go eat there. But the effect of that was super fucking creepy.
100%.
And then the only thing that was creepy that ever happened was that at some point, I think a man who was dating my mom experienced an interaction with those people that was negative. So, to some extent, like he had to confront them over something that was just like a neighborly disagreement. They were at odds about something that they were doing as neighbors, and
Maybe it was the squirrel.
immediately afterwards he became super sick and remained super sick for a really long time. Like, doctors were unable to treat him. Nobody knew what was wrong with him. It was like an autoimmune illness where it was just like everything he did was fucking him up. Everything he ate made him ill. He was sick for months on end. And then so I can't remember, like the actual autumn solstice obviously is like a big holiday for them. They'd have like a little ceremony. They'd walk around the neighborhood in robes, and after like a few months of this going on for him, they had their ceremony and it ended very mysteriously. And I want to add like just a caveat: I don't know anything about Wiccans. I don't know anything about these people, and I don't want to disparage any religion or credos or beliefs, but it struck me heavily at the time that that he had disagreed with them publicly and aggressively about something, and that they punished him for it for months, and then suddenly in late October it ended after watching them parade by our house. And you know, mad respect to all Wiccans. If I was going to pick a religion, I would pick something close to the earth like that, but also, you know, maybe don't do any harm to any people would be some words to live by.
I was really interested in lucid dreaming. I had been researching online how to lucid dream, so I had been doing different exercises and so forth on how to lucid dream. So that includes things like writing down your dreams. You can put a dot on the inside of your palms, and then whenever you see the dot, you're supposed to do a quote reality check. Oh, look at the clock, look at text, because when you're in a dream, you cannot fully understand like a clock, you can't fully understand text, etc., etc. So I had been doing all that, trying to train myself for what I thought was going to be like some lucid dreaming experience where I could do that off and on, etc. And then one night I went to sleep and I woke up in an ex-boyfriend's bedroom. And I was standing on the outside of his bedroom, looking in on him sleeping. And I thought, oh, wow, that's crazy. I'm lucid dreaming. Like, what am I going to do? What am I, going to do with this, like, power or whatever? And I, woke him up, and then we were speaking or something, and then snap. It was, just like that, like a jolt. And I was back in my bedroom in reality at my dad's house, and I was being dragged out by my feet into the hallway of my bedroom. The most terrifying dream experience that I've ever had. And then when I was in the hallway, I was snap, awake. And I was my heart was beating. I was so terrified. Whatever. It was so scary. And I just calmed down. I stood up. I went to the bathroom. I was like, what the fuck? I've had nightmares before, but it was just so real and I don't know. It was just way more real and not at all what I've experienced before. So I went to the bathroom. I went to bed. Finally fell asleep, etc. And then the next morning, I got up. I thought, oh, that was really weird that happened. Probably just a crappy nightmare or whatever. And then I walked into the hallway, and my wristband from the It was actually Close Your Eyes. Like, I'm pretty sure vaudeville.
Oh shit, nice.
Or not vaudeville. Bel-Air. Bel-Air, yeah. It was in the hallway that I had left on. And it was like in the hallway and it was just like torn off for no reason. I had not torn it off. And I just had this like horrible and dreadful like feeling in my stomach. Like, what the fuck? Like, I was ready to just let that go as like a nightmare. But then when I saw that, I was like, I felt sick. Like, why is this just torn off randomly like in my hallway? Even though I didn't like do that. I didn't tear it off. I remember specifically thinking, I'm not taking this off because this is like a good memory and I'm excited about this show and I'm not going to take it off for a while and I'm not going to tear it off. Like, this is a good memory. And I would not have just torn it off, but it was just like torn off in my hallway after this terrible nightmare. So it was just like a very pit in my stomach, like horrible feeling, and I can't explain it. I don't know.
So I'm driving on the road and I realize I'm like going a little faster than I probably should be. And I get pulled over and the end of my dream ended with me having a lot of weed in my car and getting caught for possession. That's the scariest dream I've ever had. Oh my God.
That happened in real life to some of us.
Jeez.
Sorry, y'all. That was the scariest dream I've ever had.
I mean, oh my God.
That's a true horror story.
That is a legit horror story. We got Nick Gandy up in this bitch with the scary stories. What's up, Nick?
How's it going, guys?
Holy shit, dude. We got some crazy stories from some of our best friends. Hey, we got Clem up in here with the motherfucking shit.
The Frenchie. Tell us about your scary old house. Yeah, exactly. But it's short, though. It's a short story.
That's okay. We don't need very long. Sit down.
Okay. On the track.
It's gonna be short though.
That's okay. It doesn't have to be long.
All right. So like my old house, my family house is about, and it's real. I mean, this is not bullshit stuff. It's about 300 years ago, 400 years ago. It was like my grandmother, something like that. And so it's really all like, you know, the floors is cranky. Yeah. It's like creepy. And one time we went there. Usually when we go there, it's with like 10, 11 people, all my family. And so we like, it's not creepy because there's the parents, you know. And one time we were like 15 and we decided to go by ourselves. Like just one of my best friend and my cousin. And we went there just by ourselves. Like no parents, you know. And like, no, maybe more like 18, just 18. And we went there and we were playing like video game, just hanging out like, just normal, not even drunk, not drinking, and there's a big mirror. I know, that was maybe the worst part. And there's like a big mirror. So we were in the room, and the room is open on the both sides, and there is a big mirror behind us. That's like the house is like that. And so we were playing, and just like, I don't know, just like something crossed, like, you know, and we like just look at each other and we're like, did you see that? Like literally, when I say, did you see that? And we're like, yeah. And so we kind of like, you know, freak out and say, no, that was nothing. Like whatever. We keep playing some video games. I don't know, maybe I don't even know what we're playing. And so I don't know. And it gets kind of late, so we're like, okay, let's just go sleep. So we super scary because you have to like switch like maybe 10 different rooms. There's like, you can fit literally like 25 people in this house. Like it's huge. And we just turn like, you know, all the lights, make sure the door is closed, and it's like all like stuff. So, you know, anyone can open it like so easily. It's not like secure really. And we went upstairs, and so we slept in the room, like three single bed in one room. So we move a bed for that. Yeah. And I was the first one like close to the you know, the door room, like where someone can get in basically. And there was like my bed, my cousin and my friend. And during the night I heard like like that. Dude, seriously. And just I didn't say anything, and I was just like, what is it? And it's, you know, like something coughing, but like really close to me. And so
it wasn't you.
No, and we didn't say anything. And like so I was thinking, fuck, if someone is here, I'm in the first room in the room, I'm gonna get fucked because I'm the first, you know. I like, fuck, my cousin and my friends maybe is gonna make it, but I'm not gonna make it. Like, I'm the first one. You know, I'm sleeping, I hope. And so I was like, fuck. And so I didn't sleep, I don't know. Maybe I sleep, I don't know. And in the morning, we just like, all like, say, did you hear that? Did you hear someone, you know, coughing? And they all say, yes, we did.
And it was nobody. It was none of your like cousin. Was
no,
it?
There was just the 3 of us in the house. That's it.
Yeah, but how could it not have been like somebody you were with?
Because nobody coughed. Nobody say, oh yeah, that was me. I coughed.
Okay, yeah. That's creepy.
So it was maybe someone in the room in the street, and we had like her window open. So maybe just someone was in the streets, you know, and just huffed. Or it was like a little like ghosty.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people.
It doesn't have to be more than a minute long, dude.
Nick, I used to stay the night at Nick's house all the time, and one night I woke up to go to the kitchen, and his grandma's room was like across from his room, and we went to the kitchen to get like Kool-Aid or something, and then we were coming back and it was dark. No, actual Kool-Aid. Nick's house always had Nick's house had an abundance of Kool-Aid.
Real Kool-Aid.
And we were coming back and Nick was already back in the room, and like I tripped in the living room and just like kept walking, and I got in his room, and then we were both starting to go to sleep, and there were just like alarms blaring in his house because I had tripped on his grandma's oxygen cord and unplugged it. Yeah. And so like her thing, so we were like, ah! So we had to wake up and get it plugged back in. But yeah, that was.
That was not the first time.
So it was the first and only time I did it.
So B were the funniest story of the night. Holy shit.
Nick and I also.
Because she still was okay.
Nope, this is not being recorded. Nope.
Nick and Alex used to sleep in the same bed.
Just end the story there. That's all that happened.
Nope.
And then they'd tug each other's rip cords.
Yep.
Yep.
The cigar came your way and you were like, oh no.
So we like.
Oh my god.
In the same, like a twin size bed.
Reasons then. And we were laughing pretty hard.
Easy peasy after dark. All right, one more story.
It's really not that good. It's not that good.
Don't worry about it.
I was in Arkansas when I was a little kid. Like in middle school age.
One more story.
Isn't that normal though?
One more story from Arkansas.
And the cabin was like a full circle like type shape. Imagine like you could walk from one area to the other unencumbered. Like all the way around. And I was trying to entertain myself as an only child. Like just hanging out in the living room, taking some video of my own self, like being a total goofball, whatever. My mom and my stepdad were on a hike and I was by myself. And I swear to God, I heard step. I was just filming myself like having a good time like the whole night. Like it's not like I was having my, imagination run wild. It was just all of a sudden while I was doing that, I just heard step from the bathroom area in the corner. And I was like, what the fuck? That's like really weird. Step as it came around the circle. And I was not about to be there when whatever it was got to the front of the house. So I finally was like, okay, I'm just gonna get up and run because this is fucking creepy. And it scared me so bad that I did get up and I ran out the fucking door. And I waited until my mom and my stepdad got back. And I mean, it's not that exciting, but that was that. I never felt good in that place. Like I remember when we first got there, I was like, Mom, I want you to sleep. Like I want to sleep in the bedroom with you or whatever. And she obviously did, but it was weird. It was a really weird, spoopy place.
Stab.
Yeah, that's what it was like. It was really weird. Oh, and I had to like come in, like to get the like fishing rod, like later, because I was like outside by myself, like while my parents were like gone, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do? I need to fish, so I need to go back in and get the fishing rod, and I like had to run in real quick and grab the fishing rod. Ugh, it was creepy. I didn't like it. It was very creepy vibes. Not good vibes.
Stab.
Steal my cigarette.